In Inventor, you have many options for view manipulation. Let's get started. First and most easiest way to move around in Inventor has to be your mouse. Everybody's familiar with the mouse. Everybody's probably familiar with the zoom wheel from Microsoft. If you just roll your mouse wheel in or out, your model will move either away from you or towards you. At the same time, if you hold down on your mouse wheel, it will actually pan around. Now, certain mice, you may actually have to change the mouse wheel functionality to represent middle button instead of some of the more advanced zooming functions. You can set it by program so that it will only change in Inventor, and all the options will still work. What that means is whenever you click down on the zoom wheel, it'll become pan. That goes back to the old 3-button mouse days that Microsoft used to have. The next options you have for view manipulation are the view manipulation toolbars. We'll start from the bottom and work our way up. We have the look at. If you click on this and you click on the flat surface of an object, Inventor will zoom to that surface. If you click on this and you click on a different surface, it'll zoom to that surface. If I come in here and I find a part and I have sketches for that part, I can click on look at and it'll actually zoom to that sketch. It's a very powerful tool. Anytime you're sketching, you want to ensure that you're perpendicular to the surface you're sketching on. Even the slightest angle can modify the way your sketch will turn out. The next option we have is the orbit. Underneath orbit, you'll know we have two different options. You have your standard orbit. Allows us to zoom around. If you grab it on the outside here, it'll allow you to rotate it. If you grab it on the end here, it'll allow you to rotate it in that axis. Makes it a lot easier to manipulate. Or we have the secondary option, which is constrained orbit. What that does for you is it kind of locks you down and keeps you from accidentally rotating it and spinning it at the same time. Gives you a little bit more control. The next option we have are our zoom options. You have zoom window. It's probably about the only thing that I do use on occasion. And then zoom all. Zoom all is probably the one I use the most. And then I use my mouse for everything else. You have pan. Once again, I very rarely use this option because I have my middle button set on my mouse wheel, allowing me to instantly pan without having to click on a button. Anything I can do to save a button click means that I get to save time and makes my job in life easier. Up from there, we have the navigation wheels. Autodesk introduced these a couple years ago, and they're in Inventor, AutoCAD, Revit, all the Autodesk products. What these do is they allow you to do zoom, orbit, pan, look up, look down. You can do walks, you can center on the object. You have a lot of different options for view manipulation. The best one about the steering wheel is you click on rewind and you can actually see your zooms and go back in time to where you were. Doesn't modify what you actually have done since then. If you've gone in and modified your geometry, by rewinding, it does nothing but change your view back to where you were in the moment in time. Very powerful tool, sometimes very important if you need to go back, especially if you have a big object or big assembly that you're inside of and you're zooming around and trying to get to a different part. The rewind tool is very powerful. Last thing with view manipulation over to the right is the view cube. This was literally made for Inventor. The view cube is the most powerful way to move around. This gives you control over are you looking at the front, are you looking at the top, looking at the back. If a part's upside down, this is how you fix it. Take and rotate it. I can look at an object at an angle by clicking on the edge of the view cube. It'll zoom me around to whatever edge I'm looking at there. See, I can look at different angles. The other important thing about the view cube is it helps control shadows and reflections. If you turn on your shadows and reflections for modeling, to be able to get a better understanding of what something's doing, Sometimes it can be important to see the shadows, to see how it's going to cast. It's based on what is front and what is top. If you right click on this, say set current view as top, you notice now my reflection's at the back and so is my shadow. Come back here and I right click and I say view as front. My shadow and my reflection are on bottom. I can adjust the perspective view by right clicking on the view cube and say perspective with ortho faces. I can adjust home at a distance or fit to view. What that means is if I come up here and click on this little house, it'll always go back to that. Doesn't matter where I click over here. I modify my view, click home, and it goes back to that original view that I had. Can reset the front. I have options. If I come into the options for the view cube, I can see all in 3D view, only in the current view. I can decide what is my on-screen positioning. I can actually change the size of the view cube. I can make it smaller or larger. I can adjust the opacity of it. I can change whether or not the default is on the XY or the XZ or ZY, whatever I may need to do. I can turn on my compass. One of the things I really like is turning on the compass. Hit OK. What that allows me to do is rotate my part around by using this compass. Compass changes with the views, of course. If I set that as front, see that it faces south. Front always faces south. Back always faces north. And you can see that just grabbing the view cube and twisting it around is an easy way to manipulate it. Another option you have for view manipulation in Inventor is the 3D controller. I know these cost money. Bosses don't like to spend money, but you can go to 3D Connections and get one for less than $100. Go out to eBay and pick one up, and they are the essential Inventor accessory. I always encourage people to buy a good mouse and a 3D controller. I can't imagine not being able to rotate around without my controller. What this allows me to do is it frees up my mouse to be working on an object at the same time I'm rotating. The view cube is nice for looking perpendicular to an object or if I need to look at a certain view. But if I'm in here working on something and I need to zoom in or I need to look at something very closely and I need to be modifying it at the same time, I can be modifying with my mouse and zooming in with my 3D controller. It's a very, very, very powerful tool, and it's a good way to increase your speed and not spend a lot of money. Like I said, it's a very affordable device. You can spend $400 or $500 on them, but I highly encourage you to look at eBay or something and pick you up one for $50 and try it out. You'll understand that moving around in Inventor is much easier with the 3D controller. If you're not that fortunate to have one though, between the view cube and the navigation bar over here to the right, and then using your mouse, view manipulation is very, very easy inside of Inventor.